All right, YouTube types. We're going to be doing a news crawl, and we will go wherever your chat takes us. So make sure you leave us a comment on today's live stream. We'll be starting things out by talking about that and why you're not currently at solar maximum. So take a moment for that to sink in. We'll be back at approximately 3 p.m. By the way, today we'll be doing a news crawl. We haven't done it for a while. We haven't done our weekly Wednesday live streams for a while. So that is coming as well. So welcome to the Wednesday live stream. We used to do it weekly, and priorities, you're getting pulled in every possible direction, so priorities change for various reasons. And we wanted to start out today, and thanks for leaving a comment, Smash Staff, and Sarita, and Nabi. So we're starting out today looking at that, and there's a reason for it. It's because that is our indication that we are not at solar maximum. So let me bring this up in a large size here, because I just want people to understand what's going on with this. So I'm going to bring up some different series of images. This one here is the top view ecliptic plane field plot, and that is for the past month. So, oh geez, let me hang on a minute. I readjusted something and I'm in the wrong place. Allow me to let me migrate a little bit. There we go. That's better. All right. Sorry about that. All right. That's a little bit more reasonable, I'd say. What you're looking at is the past month of the heliospheric current sheet and solar fields. So, and what's going on here, what's important to understand, is that there is still a lot of North Pole magnetism hanging out at the north heliographic pole. Let me get off screen entirely. There we go. So, all right, so check this out. You can see this North Pole magnetism. You're going to see it kind of shrink and then regrow. We are waiting for that to leave that area. So let's go back here. Let's go back to 2020. Right, so 3 years ago, but the same April 20th through May 24th. So here's 3 years ago what the heliospheric current sheet looked like. And keep in mind, it's going to be a slightly different resolution here because of the number of frames, but you can see the whole current sheet there at South Pole, and you can see fields fixed at both poles there. And this is the kind of thing you see at solar minimum, right? This is only a few months after officially solar minimum here. So April 20th through May 24th. And you can see how fixated at the poles the solar magnetic fields are. They're very much attenuated just at the polar regions. In other words, we don't really see coronal holes or sunspots, especially in the equatorial portion of the sun. So if you look at other Let's actually bring up. We'll show the line of sight field plot also. Whoops, 2020, not 2019. There we go. And you can see how fixated at the poles. The magnetic fields of the sun were at the time, right? You've got giant South Pole coronal hole at the south heliographic pole, and the same with the north. So that's the same time period here. Hang on a minute. And we might as well bring up the line of sight field plot too for the same period. So here is 3 years ago. Oops, 420. There we go, 420 to 524 for the line of sight field plot. Same period of time, right? So now we'll have there's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. Here is the line of sight field plot. Now, once again, in this situation, you can see the poles are very much fixated at the heliographic poles. And same with the coronal holes, right? Coronal holes are basically attenuated there at the poles. They are not moving around. This is what you see at solar minimum. And the reason that you see that has to do with the poles being fixated, the magnetic poles being fixated at the heliographic poles. As the solar cycle progresses, give me a moment here. You got a chance to see my desktop for once. As the solar cycle progresses, these fields reverse. And we're watching this process daily on the channel. By the way, thanks to our new subscribers, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. You're as surprised as we are, perhaps. The north solar polar field is in the process of fixing itself at the south polar region and vice versa for the south pole. So this is the process that we are showing daily on the channel. It's probably the most important aspect for heliophysics as far as the space weather videos. There's your line of sight field plot. You can see the way the fields are just fixated at the poles and not a lot of magnetic field organization happening at lower latitudes. Last but not least, there is April 20th, 2020 through May 24th, 2020 in the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And at the time, Earth was just in a south pole current sheet for most of the period, as you can see. Let's actually speed this up a little bit. You can see a little bit of a north pole current sheet popping through there, but mostly south pole current sheet around that period of time. So that's what happens around solar minimum. That's what solar minimum looks like. And this is what people are spooked of. They're worried that the sun is going to stay like this for an extended period of time. And keep in mind, of course, when we do see extreme solar minima, we do typically also see longer solar cycles. So that's another thing. When we see a strong solar cycle, we see it last not as long. Strong solar cycles feature shorter time periods. Anyway, that's what's going on around solar minimum. You can see, again, just to reiterate, you can see coronal holes are fixated at the poles, and the solar B field is just football shaped there. It is just practically right on the equator. If you go to the most current series, we'll add April 20th to May 24th and load that up to show you the vast difference. Give it a minute. There's 813 frames loading there. And there's what's going on now. Once again, that's April 20th through May 24th of this year. So only 3 years later, and you can see how vastly different the solar coronal hole structure, B field orientation, etc. is. So now, the title of the video is talking about how, hey, we're not at solar maximum. And once again, the reason for that is visible on this map. So you can see right here, there is still a North Pole coronal hole hanging out at the North Heliographic Pole. So you can clearly see right there at the, it's actually kind of behind the limb at this point, but there is still North Pole magnetism out at the North Pole, and it'll be replaced rapidly, perhaps by South Pole magnetism, or it will migrate away rapidly. Let's bring up the other imagery here just to tie that all together. So there's our line of sight field plot. And that is the past 34 days. The past 34 days there. There's a coronal hole plot, line of sight plot. And there is the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And what this shows, by the way, is if you've never seen this before, at the bottom you see Earth. Stereo B is to the right of Earth. Stereo A is to the left of Earth. And those orange lines are the potential field surface source lines for planet Earth. So anyway, you can see how vastly different that is at around solar minimum versus solar maximum. And again, we are waiting for the North Pole-oriented coronal hole to leave the heliographic North Pole before we can validly state that we are at solar maximum, because the solar polar field reversal process is arguably more important than the sunspot number. So let's just take a moment here to look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, which features all kinds of quality information for you here. Part of the Space Weather Prediction Center. And if you zoom out on solar cycles, can see that solar cycle 25 is way ahead of solar cycle 24. Now you could make the argument at the moment that this cycle is going to be a double peak just like solar cycle 24. But there are a lot of features at this point during solar cycle 25 that are clearly a stronger solar cycle. So not just the sunspot number, but the radio flux, the number of coronal mass ejections, filaments, solar flares, etc. They're all greatly exceeding solar cycle 24. If you look here also, you'll see the same thing on the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. And another important thing to note here is that the radio flux never got as low as it did around July 2008 and August of 2009. So cosmic ray flux was also higher at this point in time. Also, Earth's thermosphere was colder around 2008 to 2010 during the solar cycle 24, the solar cycle 23 to 24 transition, the solar minimum. Because it's important to understand, folks, that you must also pay attention to the troughs on your graph, right? It's not only the peaks that are important on your graph, it's also the troughs. So, and that being said, let me just take a moment here to introduce you to Solon.info if you've never seen it. Solon.info/solar. So we show this regularly on the channel, the 1-year graph of the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, which is probably going to be up today. So it's currently at 155 solar flux units, 155 solar flux units. And we are sort of expecting that to rise today. But let's take a look at the comparisons here. Let's see. These were updated May 1st. That's not too bad. How about solar cycles 23 to 25? So there you can see the way solar cycle 25 is a much steeper upward graph here. The expectation is that the solar cycle will be kind of short. And there are plenty of people that are forecasting that it'll be a greater solar cycle than solar cycle 23, believe it or not. So, and this is from a valid source who will remain unnamed, as if that source has changed that source's mind, I wouldn't want to out that person. So anyway, there is a possibility that you'll see a stronger solar cycle in 23, or around similar to solar cycle 23, in which case expect to see sunspot numbers reach above 240. So fingers crossed for that. I mean, we weren't expecting to see the aurora borealis in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania this year, but that's already happened. So also, here's another graph. This one is depicting solar cycle 24 versus 25. And it's a little bit on the messy side. By the way, thanks everybody who left comments. We'll get to your comments here, and by the way, we're going to do a news crawl where we talk about stuff that has nothing to do with space weather. Things like silver prices will be brought up. So, what is going on there? What is going on there? That is berserk. Yeah. It's showing solar cycle 24 and solar cycle 25. So I don't know. I'm not a fan. Let's see what they got for this. We'll ignore that also. Let's see. Here we go. Comparison of cycles as of May 1st. So this is almost a month old already, but let's take a look at this, where this is so far. So there you can see cycle 25 is in black. And it's currently above solar cycle 23. So, I mean, there you go. These now, these graphs do not necessarily take in any inputs, right? These are not forecast models. This is just the comparison. So significantly steeper there, almost dropping below. So, oh, I see what's going on here. So we've got 22 and 21. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now it's making sense. It's polarized glasses. Is that gray? Oh, that's green. Okay. Anyway, you can see solar cycle 24 here. A bit weaker. I mean, no, it's not nearly as solar cycle 25, not nearly as strong as 23 yet, much less 21 or 22. So, but there you go. There's the comparison. Keep in mind it is a month old, and it is quite a bit ahead despite this close call here with solar cycle 24. And of course, keep in mind that is only the sunspot number being shown there. It does not include any other features. Well, here we've got polar fields versus solar cycles. And there you've got some funky looking data too. Man, that is interesting indeed. So, I mean, look, there's the data. What else do we have here? I haven't looked at Solon.info for a while. Anyway, we'll remind our viewers about this in tomorrow's daily space weather video. And let's move on to something completely different that we haven't talked about in ages. And that is financial markets. So this is the sort of thing that is the reason why we have the small screen up here. It is so that we are able to put up proper evaluation videos. And let me blow this up much larger here to show some stuff about the financial markets. So the first thing we're going to look at here is actual stuff, commodities. So commodities, you know, they never have zero value, right? There's always some value to... Oh, hang on a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. There was a pressing matter at hand. All right, so commodities are never going to be at a zero value, right? So gold, silver, etc. And man, oh man, silver looks like it's underpriced to me, but let's look at gold first. It's down $13 an ounce today. There's a 1-year chart of gold. The most goldeny golden gold that you've ever golded in your golden gold. So that's a 1-year chart. I mean, whatever. Take it as you will. Let's look at a 5-year so we can include the weird COVID dip. The one that made no sense. Remember this? The Ides of March in 2020. Yeah, that made no sense. Remember that? When gold dropped to $1,484 an ounce, that made 0 sense. Man, take a screenshot of that one for your friends and foes. The Ides of March 2020. Was it symbolic, intentional market crashing? Let us know in the comments what you think. We told people to purchase silver on that day, and guess what happened? They couldn't buy any. Just kidding, folks. We would never give actual investment advice. Keep in mind, while I am a licensed insurance agent, well, last I checked, I'm a licensed insurance agent, and yeah, we wouldn't give investment advice on the channel. That would be very dangerous. So, but there's silver, the 1-year chart of silver, and let's put up the 5-year as you shouldn't forget the Ides of March, should ya? Because it happened with silver, too. It closed at $12.38 an ounce. So shout out to Kimberly of Australia. Kimberly from the world down under, who invested in some silver right around this time. Now, of course, it was difficult to purchase physical silver because of the inability for those orders to be filled. But that is the thing we cited on that day. Let's also look at, let's see, how about oil? Doesn't hurt to look at oil. The heck? There we go. We'll just look at Brent Sweet Crude. There you go, 77.75 on Brent Sweet Crude. And let us know in the comments if you think Elon Musk's tweets are featuring a bunch of crude, ridiculous memes that are designed by a 6-year-old. Anyway, there's Brent Sweet crude over the 1 year. Here's the 5 year. It's looking kind of weak here, surprisingly. I mean, looks like a good season to go driving around in the summertime. And shout out to Mike Bordages. And thanks for leaving comments. Nicole Wagner and Norton 750. Yes. We could put those on the screen. We just choose not to. Although we will address any super chats or super whatever stickers, any of those things that pay us cash, any of those getting dropped will get answered. Even if there are 10,000 of them. Anyway, that's what's going on with oil. Let's also take a look at crypto. A lot of people have a rage boner over crypto. I don't know why, as it doesn't have any intrinsic value at all. It has intrinsic liability. But here we go. Bitcoin, ouch, 26,000. Is that good? That's not good, right? It's down $874 per Bitcoin. Well, I'll tell you, the chart doesn't look that bad. The chart doesn't look that bad, but the chart associated with the lack of intrinsic value is bad. Man, oh man, look at how it ended last year. This looked like the death throes, if ever. But it's built back strong, so that's like not that bad of a chart. On the 5-year basis, looks bad. So that's Bitcoin over a 1 year and a 5-year time frame. The second largest crypto, Ethereum, let's see what that's looking like. It's going to be the same chart, if you're wondering. So there is a very similar indeed Ethereum chart. You can see the way it started out the year shattered and then built back looking pretty good until you look at the 5-year, in which case it looks like it is, well, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, right? Either it's going to come back up to 4,000, or you can forget about it. Remember, folks, it's got to reach 4,000 before it reaches 4,600. Continuing on, because, well, I'm biased as far as stellar lumens. Stellar lumens. According to Coinmetrics, stellar lumens is currently at 9 cents per stellar lumen. And there's another bad chart. It started out the year not as bad and then got worse. So not good. 9 cents per stellar lumen. And that's the 1 year. Here's the 5-year, theoretically. And that's a bad looking chart too. So the cryptos, I mean, on a 5-year scale, they're looking bad. And whatever. I mean, it's a speculative investment, very much like a penny stock or something that doesn't print earnings. Anyway, here's the S&P. We'll show the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow. So there's the S&P over the 1 year. Looks much less garbagey than crypto. Here's the 5-year for the S&P. Again, less garbagey than crypto. The NASDAQ is a giant inflated bubble of companies that aren't worth jack. So let's bring up the NASDAQ so I can insult various tech companies who can't get out of their own way or write software to save their own existence. So where, oh, here we go. I just click on that and boom, there you go. The NASDAQ Junkware Index Look at that. Wow. How overpriced is that garbage? I mean, again, this is not investment advice. If your portfolio is heavy in tech stocks, then whatever. Maybe your fund manager is a freaking genius. But the companies that are in that dog dirt, I'll say dog dirt instead of using profanities in our live stream, that is a pile of garbage right there. A giant inflated bubble. And it's just waiting for the Fed to decide to lower interest rates so it can waste more cash investing in its own crappy stocks. Stocks that are overvalued, just like during the late 90s, early 2000s NASDAQ bubble. That's what I have to say about the NASDAQ. All the biggest companies in there are garbage. If any one of them could write software, I would change my mind. And until one of them is able to write software, I will stick with this factual depiction of the NASDAQ. It's full of crap. It is a giant bubble of massively overinflated stocks. Julie wants me to look at copper prices. Okay. I'll look at copper prices. Let's look at the Dow Jones. At least it's got a higher value than... I mean, these are like largely real companies that don't just pretend to do their own job. It's pretty hard for an energy company or something like that, or an appliance manufacturer, to pretend to do their job, right? Either they delivered a washer or they didn't. Whereas certain tech companies, they're like, hey, we've changed some features that you didn't want. Hey, here are some features that nobody asked for. Would you like some solutions to problems that don't exist? We've got those. Guess what we don't have? Solutions to problems that do exist. The only problem with the NASDAQ junkware companies, truly pathetic organizations. What a joke. I'm not even going to look up who's represented in the NASDAQ. It is an unfortunate market, as I know I could name half a dozen companies who are absolute garbage, promoting absolute and utter bollocks at every turn of the worm. Anyway, as the worm turns, there's the Dow Jones over the past year. Doesn't look nearly as overinflated as the crapware NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, it's full of software that people claim they wrote when all they did is copy-paste other junkware without having any idea of what it actually does. So, slow clap for big tech. Once again, Google especially, you paid Sundar $226 million as a bonus. Just astoundingly brilliant. Astoundingly brilliant. So anyway, back to commodities here for a brief moment. There's copper. Copper at $3.56 per ounce at the moment. There is your 1-year copper chart. Hopefully you didn't leave a copper chart, as you'd have a green butt. And I don't mean your whole butt. I mean your butthole. Here is the 1-year copper. Wow. I know people are going berserk about chip manufacturing. So anyway, there's your copper graph. Here's your 5-year. That's the 1-year. There's the 5-year. And guess what? That looks way better than the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, a giant overvalued bubble of garbage. Garbage. I would rather gargle my own bile than invest in NASDAQ stocks. Garbage. All right, continuing on. Let's see if there are any business headlines before we do a news crawl and go to cbsnews.com, which has been the tradition on the channel. We'll show some more viable news sources, but let's see what the headlines are, as there is a Fed meeting. Yeah, so the Fed. You may like the Fed. You may dislike the Fed. I don't know. The Fed is a disaster. And so, just so you know, the Fed is a disaster, and it's centralized everything is dead, folks. Centralized everything is dead. I don't know what else to tell you, except you don't need all of that stuff anymore. All of that stuff is nothing more than a waste of resources. The market is perfectly capable, and people are perfectly capable of making sound decisions by casting their dollar votes for legitimate companies. Organizations who, are able to do their own job. I mean, it doesn't seem like that hard of a thing, but if you're out there and you suck at your own job, please improve. And by the way, on this imagery, we've got gravitational lensing. And, okay, we'll go back to CNBC. Look, it's Chairman Powell. He's a very skilled economist. Chairman Powell. Chairman Powell, everybody. And, did you hear it? DeSantis is going to announce a presidential run. Are you excited? Oh, my God, I can barely contain myself. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. So what do we got? Fed officials less confident in the need for more rate hikes, minutes show. Folks, did I call it? Did I not just say it minutes ago that the Fed is going to stop? Well, I said the Fed's going to lower rates, which, ew, look at their applets. Your applets are putrid, CNBC. You can go to hell. You can go to hell. Yeah, so anyway, there's some news from CNBC. The Fed's getting more dovish on interest rates. Is the value of the dollar gonna go down? No, because other world currencies are worse. Next, it's CBSNews.com, one of the grodiest websites ever. I mean, we used to cover it every week here at the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. I mean, look at what a disaster it is. It's horrifying. It is. Oh, here's a full screen view for your viewing displeasure, and we'll only leave that on for a few seconds because, well, we don't want to have any copyright issues or anything like that. Smash staff will be beaten later for that Smash News Network logo. Oh, you think you're funny? That's better. Anyway, let's see what the headlines are on CBS News, which, by the way, is the original fake news. CBS News. Does anybody know the story of Walter Cronkite? Let's take a moment to reflect, shall we? There was a time in the late 60s and early 70s when a guy called Walter Cronkite covered the Vietnam War. What did Walter do when he covered the Vietnam War? Anybody? Can anybody tell us in the comments what occurred that could have maybe made people angry when it came to Walter Cronkite's coverage? Well, he came out of the closet. No, not because he likes dudes. He came out of the closet because he was covering the Vietnam conflict from a leftist and biased, non-objective perspective. In other words, he was a hack journalist. And guess who he worked for? Segway, everybody. CBS, the original fake news. And thanks again for leaving comments, those who have. Continuing on to the headlines at CBS News. And by the way, if you've got a specific news story that you'd like us to comment on, we might be more than happy to comment on said news story. So just reading your comments here, and let's run over the headlines here. And when I say run over, I mean with a bulldozer. So, CBS News' headlines include families of Uvalde shooting victims seek answers 1 year later. What about Tina Turner, Queen of Rock and Roll, dies at 83? Is it too soon to... I'm not going to say it. Never mind. Never mind. Anyway, Tina Turner, God bless her heart, has gone beyond Thunderdome. More top stories. White House GOP still at odds over spending and as debt ceiling talks continue. All I can say is, if the government's going to shut down today, please send me a greeting card. Can we organize a national holiday? By the way, if anybody has failed to become a member of the Smash team, well, sup with that. You know, smashomash.com/smash team. Did you know that we're actually streaming the sun right now on the channel? Yeah. We send out email alerts for live streams like this one. Because what happens, they get demonetized all the time for no reason at all. And so we send out emails so that people like you see videos like this one. Anyway, consider joining at the gold or silver level, especially if you'd like to see these videos continue to exist and remain publicly visible. We also prefer for them to be free for all to view. And having completed that plug for the Smash team at smashomash.com/smash team, we're back to CBS News. And let's leave CBS News promptly and go to something even sillier. How about BuzzFeed? Yeah, BuzzFeed. Oh, yeah. We are getting serious here. All right, so let me just briefly take a look at your comments here. Because here at the Smash News Network, least busted name of news, we value your comments greatly. And while we do read them all, we may not be able to comment on all of them. Also keep in mind, we are actual free speech purists, not free speech phonies who claim to be free speech purists. We're actual free speech purists. So beware. Why? Because we will not censor you. So please censor yourself if you're going to say something idiotic. Keep in mind, there are no stupid questions. Ignorance is the root of all knowledge. However, if you say something moronic, you may be berated by Smash staff, me, and the rest of our viewers. So we encourage all legal speech. However, if it is idiotic legal speech, you may want to self-censor because, well, we don't want you to sound like a cretin. A cretin. Yes, say it that way. Impress your friends. Cretin. They'll think you learned the term in the UK or something. Anyway, what else is trending? A bunch of stuff that I don't care about on BuzzFeed. Let's check out everybody's trusted news source, which I'll leave on the screen for about a half a second and then get rid of that promptly because, well, I'm scared to have it on my screen. Let's see what kind of stories we've got going. In a thing sort of resembling a free press, I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you think of that website. Can you see that? Is that enough? You're not able to. Anyway. Oh my God. Are you excited, folks? DeSantis officially files to run in 2024. There's going to be a presidential bid launched on Twitter Spaces, which means possibly during the stream there may be 69ing between Elon Musk and DeSantis. So, ladies, make sure you have your popcorn all ready to go. Bud Light. Target is worried about a Bud Light situation because of Pride Month products. Dr. McCulloch is sounding alarms about food additives that that might be something to tell your friends and foes about. Also, what about some Twitter financials hitting the news? Yeah, Twitter financials. Is it because they're just misleading investors again? Geez, let's hope not. I mean, I couldn't imagine reputable companies like Twitter. Hey, at least they're not publicly traded, right? I mean, thank goodness for small favors. Anyway, let's bring up our three panes view here. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Three panes view. That's pretty sweet. And since these sites are all panes, let's not show any more of their content. Let's show something relevant to reality. And then we'll close out this stream before I ingest a series of nitroglycerin infused balloons and then do jumping jacks. All right, so we're going to bring up yesterday plus today. And let's do multiple wavelengths here. You got to do multiple wavelengths because it's 2023. You've got to have an attention span of approximately 14 seconds. So let's get that going. And hey now, make sure you do not leave comments that are offensive to extremely fragile souls. To all you extremely fragile souls out there, please avert your gaze. I'm waiting for a video to load here. I'll be right back. Oh, there we go. Never mind. We've got it. We've got it. I'll still be right back. All right, so here's the closest star for the yesterday plus today. It's SDO, multiple wavelengths, and it's just a delight because, well, guess what? It's not shutting down. So that was just to sort of bring things. This is a callback to where this video started. You see, we don't see an ultra-weak solar cycle. We are waiting to see the north solar polar field migrate from the North Polar region, at which point we will see a sudden uptick in activity, which may be actually occurring as we stream the video. So that's why we keep streaming additional content here. We foresaw the labor-intensive requirements associated with doing the kind of videos we do at Solar Maximum. So anyway, that's what's going on. We are still waiting to see the definitive proof of Solar Maximum, so I just figured I would bring it back. And a quick reminder that solar activity is indeed related to economics. So yeah, I mean, Peter Schiff, not just Elon Musk should be watching our videos, Peter Schiff should be watching them too. Hey Peter, drop me a line. So, you know, if you haven't seen Peter Schiff, no relation to Adam Schiff, if you're concerned about this, you may want to watch his content. Now, we don't agree on everything, but somewhere about 98 to 99% of things we indeed do agree on. So, I mean, and the things we do disagree on are serious in that the U.S. is not really in any danger of losing reserve currency status. A lot of people are very worried about it, but it's not really a thing that's particularly dangerous. So Julie reports that we've got an M-class flare that just kicked off. Let's see what's going on. Let's verify her report. So here's what I'm looking at. And we share my screen with our viewers, because it's not like we're doing something sneaky behind the scenes and withholding information. Well, I am withholding some information, the mechanism that underlies the solar sunspot cycles. But besides that, we're divulging everything. So anyway, let's see what's going on. Here is the X-ray flux. And there was a long duration flare there. Peak flux was around 1720. It was an M1.9 flare. So interestingly enough, it actually did happen. Right now, wait. Interestingly enough, it did happen. There's some stunning commentary for you. All right. Anyway, what else do we have here in the chat? By the way, if you've got any news stories you'd like covered, specific news stories, let us know in the chat. We can't talk about things that happened at Covenant Christian School because of the violent implications. The video will be shattered by the algorithm. So that's called censorship. Otherwise, we would normally talk about it. We would talk about whatever we want, because after all, it is still the US. Radial velocity would be the velocity with respect to a radius. So if you have a circle and you're moving from the center of the circle to the outer portion of the circle, that would be the radial velocity, the velocity with perspective of the radius. All right, so yeah, there was some flaring. It was a bit of a long duration flare. Did we have any proton spikes? Nope. So no proton spikes. I mean, that happened quite a while ago here. I mean, we're currently at, the last update there was at 1940. So that was all the way back at 1720. So at least 2 hours here, and no relativistic particles showing up there on the GOES proton flux. And by the way, thanks to the viewer who left a comment about that. I think that was on one of the shorts. If you haven't seen the shorts, make sure you check those out. They are great to share with people that have 5-second attention spans. It might get them to view a 15-second video and expand their 5-second attention span all the way to 15. Anyway, that's what's going on with the proton flux and the solar flaring situation. Let's look at today's flaring here in 131 angstroms, as it's time to close this video out. These are going to be designed to be 1-hour streams, by the way. I mean, they may go as long as 2 hours, but we're expecting these to be 1 hour in length. So, I mean, this is a thing that we're actually bringing back here. Oh, check it out. We did have the Wednesday streams going for quite a while there. They were a regular thing. And because of all kinds of disastrous situations that I won't describe at the moment, those don't exist anymore. This is the first one in a long period of no Wednesday streams. So this might be a regular feature, especially if the videos aren't suppressed by certain types of algorithmic nonsense. Try to get this thing centered here. And it looks like that last M-class flare is actually multiple different regions there flaring at the same time. So check it out. You've got this region here, the region right in the center of the Earth-facing solar disk, and this region down here in the southeast. Let me switch to the... There you go. So that is just today's imagery from SDO 131 angstroms. So a couple M-class flares happening there. I suspect that the one flare preceded the other one, which is the double spike that you see. So I see there's like a double spike, even a triple spike actually. Looks like another event is still happening. And it looks like this northern group is continuing to offend. That is, if solar flares offend you. Hopefully not. But if you are offended by solar flares, then your offense shall continue. So anyway, now keep in mind, folks, X-rays don't make it to the surface of the planet. So if you're worried about, being irradiated by a solar flare, the Earth's mesosphere absorbs those bands of electromagnetic radiation. So the X-ray portion of the spectrum doesn't make it to the ground level. So you really shouldn't be concerned about getting X-rayed by the sun. That is not a thing. And there's a reason why we measure X-rays from space. It's because they can't be measured from the ground. So this will be a continued place to watch as time goes on. This sunspot up here, it is continuing to be magnetically complex. And thanks for leaving a super chat, Julie. That sunspot will remain magnetically complex, and I think what you're looking at there on the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard is the arrival of a coronal hole high-speed wind stream. So this is something that we are waiting for here. I'm not sure why it isn't here yet. We were expecting it to arrive earlier than this, but not so here. So here's a little spike. So, I mean, keep in mind, that's a different instrument, though. So this is what you're looking at here is, if you look at this change in density here, the density goes from, come on then. You can do it. I know you can. The density goes from like 1 proton per cubic centimeter to like 13 protons per cubic centimeter. And that's what you'd expect from a coronal hole high-speed stream impact, but we have an instrument switch. So if you look at this bottom frame down here, you see the way this blue line shows up. That means that it was switched to exclusively the Discover at that point. So now keep in mind, the Discover and the ACE, they can both measure different densities because they are not at the same place. They are orbiting Lagrangian point 1, about 1 million miles out there in space. So, just so you understand that, Lagrangian point 1 is a very large area. So you can have completely different solar wind parameters from one spacecraft versus the other one. Holy crap, we got lost in space. So anyway, that's what's going on there. Yeah, the BZ, when the BZ is 0, folks, what that means is that you're getting the same amount of magnetism from the north and south pole. So, I mean, if you look at this moment right here, there you go. There's a BZ of 0. That means you're getting 2.5 nanotesla from the north and 2.5 nanotesla from the south, essentially. The vertical component there is a 0, which means that 5 nanotesla field is equally distributed. It's basically being pulled from a 180 degree angle. The blue line underneath it, I mean, I hear people on space weather. I hear one person on space weather who doesn't understand what the phi angle is. The phi angle is the magnetic spin moment of the plasma itself. So it's not a measurement of the field, it's a measurement of the particle characteristics. When the proton is moving through space, its orientation, it'll be oriented like at a 207 degree angle or a 180 degree angle or a 90 degree angle or a 360 degree angle. That's the angle of the magnetic spin moment of the particle itself. That's what the phi angle is. That's this blue line. And then the orange line is a density. The yellow line is a speed. That's obvious. Temperature is obvious. People get confused about especially the top two panes, the BTBZ and the phi angle. Anyway, let's close out this live stream. Again, if anybody's got any other news stories they'd like us to cover or anything like that, we would consider it. We'll close out with some real-time GOES 16 SUVI data, and I'll give shout-outs to our viewers. And thanks to everybody who's left comments. Oh, I was looking strangely. Sorry about that. I had the lights off. I forgot. I completely forgot. All right, let me grab the chat. I will be right back. And thanks again to everybody who left comments. People such as Nay B and Mama Sarita and Nicole Wagner. By the way, I've been trying to add Nicole Wagner as a moderator forever. I think Nicole leaves a comment and then quickly leaves the chat. We're going to blow this up to a larger size here since it's pretty sweet. That is the last about 2.5 hours, by the way. On the GOES 16 SUVI, it's 131 angstroms, ionized iron. It's ultraviolet light. Thanks for leaving comments. Norton. Thanks for dropping us a line, Julie. Also, Marion Lewis. Oh my God. Marion Lewis says her cobweb-encrusted wallet is opening soon. That's great. Make sure you visit our websites, by the way. There's an Amazon storefront. Check them out at smashamash.com. There's a Hemp Lucid site. Enter the promo code SMASHAMASH to save 10% on your checkout. There's a Redbubble shop with merch. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network least busted name in news. It's time to close this mother out. And wish people like you have the solar wind at your back.